This is Guitar Business Radio, the podcast for the business of guitar. No reviews, no demos, no idle chatter, just useful dialogue and information to help you get the most out of your guitar-related business. Whether you're a guitar builder or a guitar player or just something in between, this is for you. Now, here's your host. Oh, wait, it's me, Jeffrey D. Brown. So let's get to it. Well, this is a big episode for a lot of reasons, but let's start with the double-digit milestone, okay? It's a small thing, I understand, especially in the larger scheme of things, but it's worth noting. Incremental accomplishments should always be acknowledged, even if it's just by you for yourself. It's really important, and it feeds the motivation. But in this case, I'm sailing it out to our entire potential audience of millions, maybe even thousands. But the bigger point is, because we're getting into bigger numbers now, we're starting to refer to our episodes with numbers instead of words. And besides, I realized that our graphic templates were not going to handle long episode names very well. The other thing that is notable in this episode is our interview. Now, in our promos all over the place, you've read and heard me say we're about the business of guitar, from guitar builders to guitar players and everything in between. And I meant that. And today I'm pleased to bring an extraordinary guitar player onto the show to talk about the business of guitar from his perspective. So Bruce Forman will join us in a few moments, so hang on to your headphones. So along with our other advancements on the path, we've started to get some nice feedback on the show, which I really appreciate, and I thought I would just briefly share a couple of these with you here today. Now, Dave Keeley of Keeley Guitars writes, I'm a full-time luthier that enjoys listening to podcasts as I work in my shop. Today, I discovered Guitar Business Radio as a shared Facebook post from Megan Wells. The podcast was excellent because it was about the business aspect of being a luthier, and Megan's interview was great. Jeff is an awesome host with the voice to match. The show is well-produced and covers important topics on how to be positive and professional, exactly what is needed when you're running a business. Each guest discusses the struggles and successes they've encountered, which is also valuable information. And Jeff Latane of Latane Guitars adds, I just want to say how much I'm enjoying your show. You have a great radio voice that a person doesn't tire of. Most of all, I love your positive spin. The guitar business isn't all roses as you work your way to being known. So your positive advice is very assuring. Thanks, and keep up the great work. Well, thanks to those guys for the kind words. By the way, this is the first show I've had to do with a cold, so the voice is even lower. Now, I'm not going to read these things in every episode, but if you want to read the others, you can get them in the testimonials section on our website at guitarbusinessradio.com. Now, also, as some of you may know, we announced just a few days ago our Patreon connection, where you can now get access to special content and other benefits by supporting the show. And just to let you know, for those at the Guitar Business Insider level and above, you now get access to all 10 of the Value Shot segments, including the one from this episode as well. And each one includes a special audio file that you can listen to or download if you like, as well as the full transcript of each segment. Very useful. So if you're interested in those or you just want to support the show, check it out at patreon.com/guitarbusiness or click one of the many, many links on our site. We've already got a few folks signed up, and we really appreciate that. Now this. This is your source for profoundly interesting news briefs. Guitar Business Radio presents The Shorts. Well, The Shorts is going to be relatively short today because we have so much more to get to in the show. Just a couple of quick things. I got an email from somebody reminding me that this April was International Guitar Month. I've heard of that before, so I thought maybe that's something relevant and possibly even important, and I better check it out. So I did the requisite search, and to my surprise, found very little other than a few companies using it for promotional purposes, mostly in the past. And then also the originator of the thing, which is GAMA, the Guitar and Accessories Marketing Association, and a link to their website, which I visited. Unfortunately, there's not much there. I'm familiar with the organization and they have connections with NAMM, but there's just not very much on their website about anything. And having built several hundred websites in the last 20 years, that just kind of drives me nuts. And with our focus on the guitar business, I was frankly hoping to find something of substance I could report on here. Now, in all fairness, there may be more going on behind the scenes, and if so, maybe someone will chime in and enlighten me on that. I would certainly welcome it. Also, one other quick thing. We have a section on the website under the Episodes tab called appropriately, The Shorts. On that page, there are little, what we call accordion tabs. No accordion music, but accordion tabs that you press, and the tab opens up to reveal some additional information. And then there's links to stuff we talk about here on the Shorts. If you're interested in any of this, check that out. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. Well, Bruce Forman has had a very busy career as an extraordinary guitar player in my view, and in the view of many others, I'm sure. In that time, over 4 decades, he's pushed the creative limits of his work in many different directions. And while he can expound in depth and with a great deal of humor on the many projects he's engaged with over the years, he can also get serious for a moment or two to talk about the business side of things and what it takes to make a career work and keep a happy heart at the same time. And Bruce Forman joins us today on GBR. Well, Bruce, thanks for coming on the show today with us. Great to have you.
Oh, it's a pleasure, at least so far.
Yeah. Well, it's we'll get into it a little further, and then we'll all know.
Yeah, we can fix that, though. Sure. Yeah.
I don't doubt it. And listen, in full disclosure, I've been around a long time, I'm afraid to say, but I'm also been a big fan of your work for many years. So on a personal level, it's kind of a thrill of sorts to have you on the show. So I always like to start off these interviews with some foundational stuff. I use that word a lot, but I can't seem to get away from it. And this is so that we can have a sense of what a career or a business is built on, understanding that a lot of things change over the years. So with that in mind, could you give us a sense of how this all started for you, up to the point where you felt you were really in the business?
Wow.
That's a mouthful, I know. You take it anywhere you want to go.
I mean, I was really just into the music in high school and playing gigs and hanging out with really great musicians and just consumed with it and just sort of was working before I even considered the words career or business, and just kind of started playing and didn't want to do anything else. It came time to go to college. I considered going to North Texas State. That's what it was called back then. And, which was one of the only jazz schools going. And I just, kind of went and auditioned and just saw the scene there. And I was living in San Francisco at the time, and it was a really great time for jazz in San Francisco. And I just sort of said, well, I could go to spend 4 years here with a bunch of kids learning jazz, or I could hang out in a town where Bobby Hutcherson and Joe Henderson and Woody Shaw lived and played all the time. So, and those are just the famous ones. I mean, there were literally dozens of unbelievable musicians in a great scene, even though it was somewhat eclipsed by the rock and roll scene that was happening then. It was just something I did and kind of followed, and I was making enough money to do what I needed to do. So the career just sort of happened to me more than making a actual choice, like writing a chart and going, well, this will get me the best for this. Or whatever. Yeah.
You didn't write a business plan or anything like that.
No, I didn't. And it should be pretty obvious to most people by now.
Well, there's no rules with that kind of thing. I think that's the beauty of this kind of work, is that it is pretty organic and it does evolve on its own. One thing that I wanted to touch on in that same topic area is that you started playing at, about what age? I mean, you said you kind of were in high school and you were playing it. Sort of the development of your playing started when?
Well, I mean, God, I played classical piano as a kid and switched over to guitar at about 12 or 13. and got really bitten by the jazz bug at around 14.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, freshman, sophomore year of high school. And that's kind of where I really just threw myself into just wanting to know how it all worked and wanting to play it and, wanting to be part of the community of people that played it.
Yeah. So you were really driven, it sounds like.
Yeah. I'm a self-motivated individual, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that helps. Look, I kind of imagine, at least this is my viewpoint, that many artists don't necessarily see themselves in business per se. I suppose if you're an employed artist, that might be the case. But otherwise, most artists, in my view, who are pursuing some kind of a career on their own, it always involves a lot of independent opportunities and engagements. And to me, that has always seemed like a business. Maybe not everybody looks at it that way, but as you look back, how did you see yourself in relationship to the business world, if at all?
Well, it's funny. I kind of was born with the business gene in a lot of ways. I've got good business sense and good business skills. I think many jazz musicians in particular have a lot of the skills that you would want in a true CEO. The ability to read the landscape, the ability to adjust to things as they change, to see the opportunities. I think that's just naturally built into an improviser mindset. But and I, my father was a businessman, and my family were business people. So I guess I do have a little bit of that gene in me, and I've always seen opportunities. Unfortunately, with given the limited amount of resources in the particular business I had chosen to be in, it was more challenging. I mean, if I had, right around then, if I'd have gotten into silicon crystals or semiconductors, I'd probably be in a different place right now.
Yeah, and we'd be all the worse for
just because the margins and the percentages are different.
Yeah,
but I've always loved the music. I'm almost obsessed with how it works and how to make it better and the difference that different people bring to the music. So teaching was always a side business I did even in my earliest days in high school. I had guitar students and just loving the creative challenge of seeing where they were, what they needed to hear at this point in time to get to them to where they wanted to go. It was a great way not only to help them and make money, but also for me to learn. Mm-hmm. And my playing to get better. And it was fun. I always found it fun. I know a lot of certain players find teaching to be drag or, difficult. But for me, it was always fun and a creative challenge. So there was that part of the business. And of course, that has really changed. Back when I was starting out, I would say the education side of jazz was probably in the 10 to 15% range. Everybody was making money playing and recording. And I would say now, all these 50 years later, or 45 years later, you could almost say that paradigm is completely flipped, and where the education, jazz and music education side is a good, huge majority, percentage of the revenue that goes into jazz. Yeah. So, that put me in a really good place business-wise, and by no real, I would love to say that I planned it this way or something, but the world just sort of changed around me, and I had developed the skills and the desire to be a part of that. So on that level, how you see, yourself as a businessman, I guess I'm an artist, but I'm also a teacher and also a craftsman. There are times where I get called to be more of a support person to somebody else's artistic vision, and being willing to have my skills, of course, help pay my rent and stuff.
Yeah, that makes you a consultant, is that right?
Right, or a consultant, or just as a sideman, and just really bring what I've got to make that person's vision come true. Yeah. The selflessness, the team spirit, and of course I'm remunerated, or compensated at least.
One would hope.
And so, that's all business. And I think that's kind of what has happened to most of us who play, is there's this huge, diversification of what it is. Because that old paradigm of just getting playing 6 nights a week in a club and then going to the next town and playing 6 nights a week and getting paid enough to live. Unless you're like really in the highest strata of the business, that's just that kind of opportunity to sustain yourself is not really there right now.
Yeah, I can understand that. Listen,
I think I took your question, through about 4 decades there. Sorry about that.
No, but listen, I had another question I was going to ask you a little further down the road here, but let me just bring it in a little sooner because you're talking about teaching and that sort of thing. And I know a little bit, I've seen that you've had or have a position at USC, which looks to be a teaching position of some stature or has. What can you tell us about that? And how has that affected you, and how's that affecting anybody else?
Well, I mean, it's a great job to have. I mean, working for a major, first of all, it's an honor. I mean, the quality of the staff that I'm working with, I mean, the stature of the players, the great community. The students are really, I believe, to be some of the very top young players in the world coming to that school, along with the obvious having a real job, of course. Yeah. It's a paycheck. Part-time.
A paycheck that
comes, albeit
part
part-time. It's been great. The kids are always, I've got like all these people who have their eyes and ears open. So they're letting me know what's happening in the world, what's new, because let's face it, being an older guy, I'm still kind of, living in my world. And so for them to constantly be bringing the world to me and challenging me, and I see it as a mentoring position, not really a maestro-pupil relationship. Mm-hmm. So I'm just more experienced, and I try to get them to see the world as it is and hear the world as it is and develop, the full potential that they have. I've also, in my past, I started a nonprofit that was very successful called Jazz Masters Workshop, which was, again, a mentoring program where I just wanted to put musicians and kids together, because really my learning experience was not as formal as what we consider our education system to be. It's just like I wanted to play the music, so I surrounded myself with the people who played the music, and they're, they taught by example. And they challenged me and demanded of me what they demanded of themselves. And it was a very vibrant, robust learning experience that was immersed in the culture. And to me, that is something that is the essence of this art form, of this music, of this community. And so I created a nonprofit that was going in, on 2 coasts for about 10, 12 years.
Wow.
Before I just got tired of, and I learned all the business stuff. I mean, I was the executive director. I was the accountant. I was the mail boy. I was the, program director. I did it all. And I'm glad I learned all those business things and understood, writing grants and giving speeches and telling the world how important this is. So all these experiences have been, to pardon the pun, instrumental in developing my view of the world and my skills going forward.
Yeah, that's it sounds like that was a little bit of the paying it forward, I guess, for you at that point.
It was, but it was also I was compensated for it. I mean, we had a board of directors, and they were kind of adamant about me being paid properly. I was kind of like, no, we got to give this money to the kids and the other musicians. And they were the ones who, I was not the board of directors, decides all that stuff. And I did, of course, it took me out of a lot of work. There was a lot of, I still played and toured, but I didn't really put as much effort into booking that stuff and keeping it going, because I had a lot of time where I was just working with the kids and developing programs and making sure everybody else got paid, the lights were on, and stuff like that.
Well, I don't think that you're getting compensated for it takes away from the paying it forward part, because the net effect of what you were doing was certainly would not have happened had not it been for your efforts. But let's again switch gears, and it's something I guess I'm noted for. This is about an 8-speed transmission here, so
cool. I liked it.
But I've looked at your work over a span of, I guess, probably about 40 years or so, and I got the impression that this is just my broad view of it, but that the second half of that span, and looking at it from kind of a marketing standpoint, I saw you really starting to push the creative boundaries a lot more. At least that was my impression. And I'm wondering if that's correct or if I'm even close. And if so, did that change the market interest in your work? Did it have any other effect that you can see, if I'm even right on that?
Well, it's funny. There's a lot of dynamics to that. There's the, just the, I guess you could say the artistic one. I was lucky to have people in my life that, I wanted to play bebop. I know that sounds crazy. It almost sounds like Mr. Magoo, right? A kid.
No, not to me. I'm a bebop lover, so it's
okay. But imagine the late '60s, early '70s, San Francisco. You know what was happening there.
Sure.
Sure. And I'm a guitar player. And, here I am chasing Charlie Parker when, Grateful Dead, Jefferson Starship, Sons of Champlin, they were the Jefferson Airplane, that, we're all just like, I even jammed with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like,
that's awesome.
That was happening, and yet I was totally on this, go for the bebop thing. And then I hung out with those guys and was accepted, which blew my mind. But there were certain ones that were always saying, Bruce, you got to take it to the next level. You're the one that needs, you need to go somewhere with it. And like at first, I remember one guy in particular, his name was Donald Bailey, who's just really one of the most creative musicians I've ever met in my life. And he was like, where, you got to take it somewhere. And I remember being a little, put off by it. Like, what do you mean? I'm not hanging with you guys, this is where I wanted to be, just playing with them. And he says, no, you're already part of our community. We're older, you're young. You're supposed to bring new stuff to this, or take this to the next place. And it was always sort of an encouragement from all the guys, not to just, this isn't museum music. This isn't institutionalized music. This is living music. And you've got different experiences and you've got different perspective. And we're looking to you to take us to the new place. Oh, and so I always felt a little responsibility for that. Of course, then you flip the coin and you look at the business, and of course, let's face it. Downbeat doesn't write about good bebop players. Bebop was a period, even though I believe they should.
Yeah, of course.
That period's come and gone, and they're always looking for the new thing. So from a business marketing standpoint, really, it's almost better to be different than good.
Or at least rename it. Maybe they just need to rename it. So.
Well, you know what I'm saying. So
exactly.
There is that marketing pressure to be different, to be unique, and of course that is, to be honest with you, the hallmark of jazz in the first place. So it's not dissonant from the true purpose of the music. It actually, it actually is the true purpose of the music. So, to kind of say like, whether you're doing something from a marketing standpoint, if you're doing something because you've just got an idea and you really want to do it and it's fun, or it feeds your artistic sonic vision, it's like all those things are so entangled.
They are.
That it's hard. It's hard to separate them out and say, oh, I did this for this. Of course, I saw, like with my band Cowbop, how great a marketing potential that had. But I also realized the bigger potential of career suicide.
Well, I was a fan of Cowbop, by the way. I love that big bass drum.
Thank you for that. And actually now, of course, it's a different. But when it started, Jeff, I was like the Antichrist. There was like really the one thing that you could not put with jazz was cowboy. It's like urban versus rural.
Well, I love Western swing.
Versus white. No, really, man. I'm talking the truth here. There was like almost a black versus white attitude. There was a political, everybody assumes all cowboys are Republicans and all jazz musicians are Democrats, which is, of course, not the truth.
Okay.
But all these things, the societal pressures were really rejected with, if not just disinterest, actually outright animosity towards me at the beginning. And, and to me, it seemed crazy because because, the music, which was called Western swing, was really just jazz, but they had to market it to a different group of people who the word jazz was distasteful.
Yeah.
So they just called it something different. But it was a bunch of guys, instead of horns, and pianos, it was fiddles and guitars. And they were playing the same tunes that Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington were playing, the same swing beat, although a little bit more polka-fied because they were German descent. But it was a swing beat. It was all based on improvisation and blowing. How is this not jazz?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And so, I wasn't on any crusade to bring it back into the world of jazz. That was not my purpose. I was not being political. I was not even a culture warrior.
Yeah.
The truth is I'm a cowboy too. I ride and train horses, start horses, and I go out and do work on ranches, for the fun of it, and was competing, not in rodeo, not in that gladiator style rodeo, but like backyard, kind of novice rodeo and ranch rodeo, which is way less, it's actually kind of holistic and harmonious with using the animal,
right.
not stressing the animal.
Mm-hmm.
And, so to me, it just sort of happened to me. I was at a cowboy thing and I played and everybody dug what I was doing and I really enjoyed what I was doing. And I, of course, loved the repertoire of Western swing. And so I just put my own style of Western swing band together, which more like Charlie Parker joining Bob Wills than anything else, and it, of course, and it also enabled me to be a little bit more of an entertainer because there were times in jazz, particularly at the last part of the 20th century, that jazz had become very serious and very uptight and institutionalized in my estimation, and very far from the people who I'd grown up playing with, like Richie Colt, Dizzy Gillespie, Bobby Hutcherson, Freddie Hubbard. Those guys were, they were real fun on the bandstand. They loved to laugh. They loved to be joyous. They loved to tell jokes. They were great entertainers, and then it came along in the late 80s, 90s, where everybody was kind of buttoning down and trying to act like Miles Davis' second quintet, but with suits on,
Yeah.
And so, I guess I just sort of rejected that idea that, being taught by the guys who said, no, you're supposed to do your thing. And here I had this cowboy thing going and I had this love of this great music. And of course, I figured I'd make music that made the Hatfields and the McCoys love each other. Right.
Yeah.
But instead I just made enemies out of both.
Well, that's,
it's like the Cowboys hated me for playing jazz and the jazz musicians hated me for wearing cowboy clothes. So,
and you wear it so well. You really do. It's a great look. And I just, I would just tell you, like I just said, I thought it was, it works for me, and I'm sure there's others that it did.
I believe it does too, and the band's still going. And we have a great time. And of course, now 15 years later from when it started, I've got generations of kids who've never known a world without cowbop in it.
Yeah,
jazz musicians. You know what I'm saying? So and when I try to explain to them that I met a lot of resistance. And was actually kind of setting my career back a little bit, maybe, by doing this. They're all incredulous.
Yeah, that's a really...
you know what I mean? And now, of course, I've got gigs and the band does work quite a bit. I've got other projects I'm kind of focusing on a little bit more now. Mm-hmm. But, I'm just really proud of that creation. And it took a lot of balls to do it.
Yeah.
And but it was honest. And I saw the potential upside. To be honest with you, I'm surprised we're not as big as a band like Pink Martini or something,
sure.
and doing big tours like they are. I always wondered why that never really cracked. And maybe the world can tell me I'm just not good enough or something. But the fact is it's a killing band. It's a great project. It's lots of fun.
And it's really unique. It's really unique.
Yeah, and there's an example of me living up to Donald Bailey's, in making that point to me. Do something, take what you got and bring something new to the world with it. And it's not the only thing I do. You mentioned the second half might span me doing this. Maybe I have a little bit more security in belief in myself that I'll always be able to do what I need to do. So I don't need to worry about potential career suicide by doing whacked out things that I believe in. Maybe I just gotten to the point where, I get older and I don't care as much. What the ramifications are. The creation of it is the important thing. I have to, I have a vision, I have a belief, it's me, I can do it, I need to do it.
And it's it's in your heart
too.
That's
what has to be prioritized.
You got to follow your heart.
And also believe in my own business sense that look, here's the thing. I can teach and I can comp. I can accompany people. With those two skills, I'll always be able to work somehow. It's the way I look at it.
Yeah. Well, that gives you some security.
That's my fallback.
Yeah.
So, and I don't really need, and if you want security, this is not the thing to do, really, I'm not that stupid, really. I'm a lot,
But you're very diverse. You've got a lot of diversity in your work. And I guess that kind of leads me to fifth gear, or maybe it's fourth, I don't know, a little bit more into the weeds and a kind of a quick one, but I know you've touched a little bit on this already, so it might be a quick answer, or not. But I'm interested in how, you've run your career over the years. It sounds like you took an active kind of hands-on CEO-like approach. At any point, did you ever just turn it over to somebody else to run like some do? I mean, I haven't heard that, so I'm not sure that applies to you. I'll be honest with you. I would love nothing more than I'm a guy literally who I'm one of those idea guys. Like Wayne's World. You're an idea guy. Kind of thing. Yeah. I come up with great ideas that I really believe would not only be great projects for the world, but also make money and and do good things. But I don't have people who just, will do the work. And I have so much bandwidth to do stuff. So I have to be really careful what roads I go down, because I can really get consumed with it. So I have at times. I did have an agent once, and he just ruined everything I had going. That does happen.
Everybody I've ever turned over that responsibility to, which has only been a couple of people, it's been a bad experience. It was a setback, not, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So I'm still looking for the right person and people. And I just always felt that, I work with Clint Eastwood. I look at him. He has an idea for a movie or something, right? And boom, he gets the best people in the world and they get on it and the movie's made, but he's Clint Eastwood. Everybody wants to work with him. He has both star power and financial power. And so his artistic visions, he can snap his fingers. Of course, he does lots of work and he has to oversee it. But, I'm not that. I can't just say, hey, I've got this idea, and there's hundreds of people that want to work with me and for me for it. You
got to make it happen. Yeah, I understand that. I have the same issue.
I do it myself, and I'm really, if I had to look back at my life of things that I'm proud of, there's this thing I did called the Route 66 Challenge, where I talked my band into driving the entire length of Route 66. We left with $100 to see if we could do it like the old days, like when people originally traveled the road. And this was in 2004 we did it. And, we would just stop places and play and have people feed us because they liked the way we played. They let us stay with them, you know what I mean? We'd play on the street. We just, and I did it as sort of a fundraiser. People pledged per mile for that nonprofit I was running. Mm-hmm. And it was a major success. But, you have no idea how much work that was to do the PR for that, to do the, but at the same time, it was an amazing experience, something I'm so proud of. And we've done subsequently 3 more trips.
Wow.
In that way.
That's cool.
And, and I kept everybody fed. I kept everybody housed. We had a great time.
On $100?
Made a lot of friends.
On $100?
Well, we left with $100. We pretty much made it back with more than that.
Yeah,
but, we made it. We just proved that a minstrel basically can still exist in the 21st century.
Yeah.
And, that was that's a great idea. That should have, if I'd have had the right PR people or the right sponsorship, that should have been a feature movie.
I would think so. I would think so. You should have had cameras on that.
It wasn't. And so what? You know,
Yeah.
I did it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if I hadn't done it, if I hadn't made the commitment to do it, if I hadn't looked at my guys in the band's eye and said, look, I'm going to get us fed no matter what, you know what I mean? Do this with me. You know, we're going to raise money for these kids. You know, let's do this.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, things like that. It's a CEO kind of thing. You know, my new project, the Red Guitar, my project, Junkyard Duo. I mean, no one, you know, I just got to tell you, it's like you only get that kind of help when you're already across the finish line in this business.
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
that's
if you're
right.
Wynton Marsalis, you got every great booking agent in the world who wants you. If you're Keith Jarrett or something, you know, I mean, if you've already got the cred, you know what I mean? And even them, they're, I think, a little bit in this today's economy struggling because the record sales aren't really there that they used to be. So they're having to diversify in other ways, and they're having to tour more and play more, and it's putting a lot more stress on their bookers because obviously there's a lot more young bands out playing newer stuff. You know what I mean? So it's come. I mean, God, if there's a booking agent out there who's got, or a manager that wants to talk to me, man, I've got ideas and I'll work my ass off with you. You know, we'll make money. But, you know, basically everyone I've ever dealt with has been a setback in my career. So I have to do it myself.
Well, you just did the perfect segue into, because I wanted to just ask you briefly about these projects, and you mentioned the Red Guitar and Junkyard Duo, and I want to know something about that Red Guitar, you know, in itself, and then I've seen some promo that you've done on a Junkyard Duo, two really interesting projects. So can you tell us a little bit about both of them?
I'd sure love to. The Red Guitar, first of all, the guitar itself is made by a luthier in Germany. His name is Stefan Sontag.
Mm-hmm. I know who he is.
He's a really just a, you know, not as well known as some of the other guys like Bob Benedetto or Tom Rebecki, but just a ridiculously, you know, talented guitar maker. And the show, and the guitar is bright red, and the show is very autobiographical. It's also got a lot of historical context in it. And it's just, I mean, the clip notes of the show is it's basically a one-man show, storytelling and playing, describing what it's like to live a life in the pursuit of sound. That would be the short elevator pitch.
Right.
You know, and basically I tell a story and I play. As you might know, I'm a novelist, so I write, and I wrote a story, and meeting the Red Guitar, this guitar has an amazing sound, and at the moment that I picked it up and learned it and played it, it sort of spoke to me, and I could feel the molecules in my body realigning in a new way. So I chose to tell the story of my life through meeting this guitar, using the red violin and the red shoes as a narrative arc. For, you know what I mean, that the basic narrative arc of those stories to weave together a story of how you meet music, and how your influences shape you, and how your experiences and storytelling and just the community of people change your perspective, and how the business challenges you in different ways, and how you deal with losing people, and you know, how you deal with gain and loss throughout the entire trajectory of a life.
Wow.
And your responsibility to leave the world in a better place than you found it.
How long is the show, Bruce? How long is the show? The
show, when I do its full version, it's about 70 minutes. It's full one-man theater length, and it is my dream, or my dream and my plan to get it to like a more of an on-Broadway repertory theater world, to kind of be able to tell the story of what it's like to be a jazz musician, and give the audience the opportunity to understand more deeply what we go through, you know, both in our history and our background that leads us to those performances they go to hear, but also what we go through while we're playing.
Yeah.
And so that giving the world a deeper understanding of jazz and the jazz process and the jazz musician, therefore creating a bigger fan base and a deeper understanding of the music.
Right.
Because I'm doing it in a literal fashion along with while I'm playing.
So you have occasional performances of that. Is there any place, I would assume, where folks can find out when you're going to be doing that show?
Yes, it's all on my website, bruceforman.com, on my calendar page.
Okay.
I do it all around the world. I'm going back to New York. I'm doing it there. I'm going to be, I do it in the LA area quite regularly. I do it, I just do it whenever, I mean, it's become my main project. And because really also this project, it's like when you're a person like me and you've had all these different projects throughout your life, I've got my trio and I've got cowbop and I've got, my writing and I've got my teaching and I've got, I play sideman with all these great musicians and I've, all these things. And I'm just really into the psychology of why we play and why the music picks us. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you take all that together, that project, The Red Guitar, has all those things inside it. It's all of the things I am.
Well, it
sounds like a famous song.
I think it is. So I know it's something that I'm going to want to see as soon as I can.
Yeah, and you'll see a little piece of it on my website. Mm-hmm. There's a little teaser roll about it.
I think I've seen those, right.
Yeah, and so I just did it last Friday night, and I've already rewritten a couple of things. I mean, it's a true jazz show in the fact that I'm always rewriting it. Every audience reacts differently, so I definitely perform it differently, depending upon their reaction to certain things that happen. Sure. So it's jazz theater. It's a jazz libretto, and I'm just real proud of it. Again, you think that, here's something that no one's ever done that. No one's ever done this before. And yet at the same time, what have I done but reinvent the wheel? What is more just primal than a person with a guitar telling a story?
One would think. One would think. But, listen, I'm a believer that things tend to unfold as they should, as long as we don't put up barriers. I preach enough in my value shot segment at the end of the show, so I'm not going to get into that stuff here. But let me just ask you real briefly, because we're coming toward the end here. But I want to hear a little bit about Junkyard Duo, because that seems like in the for something completely different category.
Yeah, well, it is. It's a challenge, but it again, it's all me. I just started. I have a guitar that I made for playing on the street on Route 66 by National, their famous resonator guitars. And because it's so damn loud, I could play on the street and play lines with the horn. And so I had this guitar and I just started playing it again because I really dig the wacky, kind of trashy sound it has. And I just was getting frustrated with bass players always canceling out, getting other gigs. So I just got a drummer, and we would we around the LA, the club scene. I would get calls to play like brunch gigs and hipster club gigs, And I just got a drummer, and I told him, I said, look, I just want you to bring a drum set made of reclaimed objects. Like boxes.
What a great idea.
Cans, chains, brake drums, trash can lids. Just, you can bring a snare drum if you want, or a hi-hat or a cymbal. Cymbal sounds kind of like, could be a garbage can lid anyway sometimes. So, but just bring that kind of stuff. Shakers, just non-traditional drum set stuff, and make it look as hobo as possible. And then we dress up like hobos, and we go and we play, and we just improvise with just guitar and percussion. And it can go everywhere from Count Basie to Cecil Taylor to cinematic textural stuff to swamp grooves like Ry Cooder. It can, always with our weird way of doing it. And we have fun, and we stretch the limits of boundaries. I like to call it scavenging music from the edge of sound, Now,
my understanding, I saw that you've actually done a CD.
A CD just came out of it. Yes. And it's a bit of a cultural statement too. Like, okay, you're going to throw us musicians away. Well, we're going to hang out in the junkyard and play. You can't stop us. We're like cockroaches.
Yeah. You said you were maybe like you were the last band to release a CD or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. And, we put the CD out, and I realized, do kids even know what these are anymore?
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm sure interested to hear it. But let me ask
Just
you.
think, you know how nostalgic we are for records, right?
Sure.
LPs. Sure. I mean, pretty soon people are going to be that nostalgic for CDs.
Well, I hope for your sake that it is, but I would certainly encourage anybody that's interested to listen in whatever format works for them. But let me go to my final and sort of proverbial question, and that is, we've had a lot of changes in the business and the world of guitar. Seems like, though, at the same time, everything that was ever made for guitar players seems to be still being made by somebody. So, I'm kind of wondering, just your sort of big picture view, where do you think this is all heading, and what advice are you giving to younger guitar players looking to make a career for themselves?
Wow. Well, the most important, I'm going to go there. I think I'll go backwards on your question. Yeah. The most important advice I give to young players is be a badass. And of course, whatever that means to that specific person. Be the person that everybody wants to play with. Be the person that everybody wants them to play on. That, you know what I mean? People want to be on your projects. People want you to be on their projects. Really, just go for it. Whatever that means to you, whatever your aesthetic and your perspective and your background and your skill set and resources give you, go for that. And give fully to that, and trust in your instincts, and that the world will want it. That's the thing. But then, to kind of go back through your question, I do sit with my students, and we look at the environment, and we try to strategize as to what the best places, like making a good business plan. You would say, well, this is a good place to really get the most benefit for the work, or I can perceive that this technology will take over, so I want to be the first guy on Instagram or something with 20,000 followers, because that's where a lot of this is headed. Those kind of things.
Sure.
We're always looking at technology. We're always looking at the cultural trends, because there's, as well as I do, there's going to be a huge and always has been a huge pendulum shift. It's going to happen at some point. Some person will be the one who sets off the whole thing in motion to where everybody was playing electric guitars, then acoustic guitars became the big thing. You know what I mean? And everybody went acoustic and unplugged. We've seen that how many times in our life now, to where that pendulum has shifted. Aggressive music versus pastoral music. We're seeing a time where, particularly in jazz, vibey music is, a lot of music is very atmospheric now. You know what I mean? And I'd say Bill Frisell had a huge part in changing the world in that way. And, but it's going to change back. There's going to be a hyper-technical, like Alan Holdsworth, that'll come along, you know what I mean? And so, I try to make them aware of where the business is, where the opportunities lie now, with an eye on what the future possibilities that are opening up are, and being also highly tuned in to the cultural shifts of the pendulum. And therein lies being very well versed in historical trends.
Boy, that's a great way to put it. Trends. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And so that's your strength there, is to know, to have I'm not saying be the world's authority on Western swing, or the world's authority on the Beatles or Motown or anything, but just to have a good sense of, or Dixieland, a good sense of, this is how the voice leading this music worked. This is kind of the way they approached group playing. This is the type of vocabulary that was used. You know what I mean? These are the harmonic things that seem to happen in that style. And just if you have that, then you can spot trends quicker. Of course, it makes your music more complete and artistic. and your aesthetic will pull you to the place it needs to be.
Well, I think you said something there that in some cases is kind of the key, is kind of being open to and being able to see or foresee where these things are coming from. And if I guess there's going to be potentially a conflict between where somebody wants to go from their heart and where the business is going. What kind of a decision do they have to make? Am I going to follow the trend and go for the opportunity, or am I going to follow my heart and do what I want to do? Those are always kind of conflicting things, I would think.
Well, when you look at the reality of it, there's the trendsetter. There's only been a couple of trends that were really made by somebody thinking they were going to make money. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's in the music that I'm talking about. So that those trends were all started by people who had a vision and believed in it, come hell or high water, and were not going to, conform to what was happening. Yet the people that made money on it, they kind of saw the trend coming and positioned themselves well, and took advantage of and I'm not saying that the innovator didn't make any money either. In most cases they do, but often in some cases they don't. But the people who see the trend coming and position themselves well and exploit the good atmosphere of a specific business market, they do very well, and so I try to I've got these kids, I just want their minds open to all these things and let them find their way and have faith that these people will ultimately do very well. I don't want little Bruces. I just want them to get the benefit of my perspective so that they can move forward and be successful.
Awesome. I think that's a great way to end this interview, which has been fantastic. I think people are going to really, really enjoy this, Bruce. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedule and spending it with us today.
And may I also suggest one other thing, which is I have a podcast as well.
Oh, that's right. I did want to bring that up. Let's talk about that very briefly.
With Scott Henderson and Troy McCubbin. It's called Guitar Wank, one word. And of course, very much different than yours. We're basically there to have you ever seen The Muppet Show?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. The two old guys in the balcony?
Yeah.
We're like those two old guys in the balcony, basically heckling and ranting about the world of music.
Yeah, it's a great podcast. There's a lot of good stuff on there.
We do some teaching, and we have guests, and we have a lot of fun. And so people who really just want guitar silliness and fun and insights, I'm really proud of it. It's been going for like 2 years. We got like over 100 episodes up, and we're really excited about.
You haven't gone past. You haven't actually gotten to 100, right? You're still on 99.
Well,
what's that about?
We have high hopes for having a 100th episode that's just unbelievable, and because of the fact that we really haven't been able to come up with what that is, we've been stuck at 99.
I love that.
We're using the alphabet. I think we're up to the end of the alphabet now.
Yeah, the last one I saw was R. You're at 99R, and Troy was kind of trying to explain that a little bit.
It looks to me like we might go to decimals or maybe Roman numerals next. I don't know. And we haven't really figured out what we're going to do. We are giving away some pretty exciting gifts, so we're letting people, enter the contest and stuff and get some of the good stuff. So,
well, I would just encourage people if they want to listen to that. And I really enjoy it. It's guitarwank.com. Is that right?
That's correct. Or it's on iTunes and Stitcher and all that stuff.
As we all are. Okay. I think we made this the longest interview so far for GBR.
Oh, damn. I knew I was going to do that.
But you know what? I'll tell you, every second of it, worth it, really worth it. And again, Bruce, so appreciate you coming on. And I'll look forward to staying in touch with you and finding out what's happened next.
Okay. I appreciate your asking, and keep up the good work. This is really great stuff you're providing for people. I know it's a labor of love because I do one of these podcasts too, and believe me, it does not go unnoticed.
Yeah, and I totally get that, and it does suck up a lot of time, but it seems like it's not work. You know what it is. It's not work. It's just
sure.
It's all good stuff. Okay. Again, we'll talk soon, and be well.
Okay, thank you.
In today's Value Shot, I want to talk a little bit about taking your business or your career to the next level. Some of you may be thinking about that a little or a lot, or maybe not at all. But first, again, just a very quick reminder that you can get immediate access to all of the Value Shot segments in a special audio format with complete transcripts when you join us on Patreon at the Guitar Business Insider level and above. Now, I'm sure that most, if not all of you at one point or another have seriously thought about taking or trying to take your business or career to the so-called next level. You may not have used those exact words, but I think you know what I mean. And by the way, there are lots of people out there who will tell you how to do that, and with probably as many different methods and plans for success. Many of them are very thick and detailed, but my first bit of advice on that, don't make a decision based on thickness or details. And for those of you who've listened to more than one of these value shots, you should know by now not to expect that kind of approach from me, at least in these 5 or 6 minute segments. But I will give you some, yep, you guessed it, foundational elements to help you move forward, like basic ideas and maybe some check boxes that you can employ. As always, we can get into more of the weeds later on. Now, I've learned most of this stuff myself over the years from others, and in many cases, I've integrated it with my own components. But for me, the first thing that needs to be present when initiating a move to the next level is vision. And it's a personal thing. You can listen to others and their ideas or vision, but in the end, it's got to come from your own thinking. It has to be your vision if you are leading the way, and usually you are. You'll need to see yourself in the vision, living the vision, operating in the vision as though it has already happened. That has to be your starting point, in my view. A key element, obviously, is clarity. The vision has to be clear to you. But here's a word of caution. It doesn't have to be exact in terms of all the things that need to happen for the vision to come to fruition. The vision itself may change and even evolve over time. And so we have to see the vision as part of something even bigger, the destination. And you've heard me talk about this before, right? Like in every episode. So let's take a simple example to illustrate this. And again, keep in mind that this example may not relate to something that you're doing, but just make the appropriate substitutions. Now let's pick something out of the blue, like, I don't know, guitar building. That might apply to a handful of you. And let's say for the moment, you're running a one-person shop. Could be 5 or 10 or more, but let's keep it, simple. Now, in your unique case, you may feel limited. You can only do so much with your time. You want to produce more. You want to make a better living. You want to build something unique and different, but you can't under your perceived limitation. Notice I said perceived. You may not be as limited as you think, but the fact that you believe in your limitation is in itself, of course, limiting. So you're going to have to work at losing that notion in order to get past it. And I know, easier said than done, but just keep it in mind. So first things first, start visualizing the circumstances, the setting, the activity that's going on at your next level. Maybe it's an expanded shop, additional people working with you, possibly a partner or an affiliation. Or maybe it's having more capital to work with. That can make a big difference if it's used productively. Also, I would suggest making notes about your vision. That takes discipline, but I can tell you that if you document your thoughts on a regular basis in whatever way works for you, you'll be very grateful when you've forgotten a critical idea or a thought you had a while back. Again, this is easier said, but worthy of repeating, and I'll tell you why in a moment. As I said, the next level for you, as you vision it, may turn out to be something completely different. It's part of the bigger destination that is always defined by us in a more general way. Sometimes it's about attaining a lifestyle, financial security, market position, or whatever. Getting to the next level is usually an important but incremental part of the bigger journey. So as we're looking at our vision for the next level, it's a very good idea to make sure it will play a positive role on the path to your larger destination. That's an important checkbox. In my own experience when I was younger and then working with other folks in later years, there's a common desire, maybe it's human nature, to want to know in advance how things are going to work out. In business, Lenders and investors and other potential stakeholders want to know this. And they often want detailed business plans and more to give them confidence in the intended result. But let's go back a few episodes when I talked about the perils of the expectation game. If you've not listened to them, go back to episode 5 and 6 and review. I talked about primary or operational expectations and secondary or variable expectations. Well, in my view, most business plans, formal or not, fall into that secondary category. The outcomes are almost, if not always, variable. If we become too invested in narrowly defined expectations, we set ourselves up for all kinds of things that don't end well. So by having a good sense of our larger destination, whatever that is for each of us, we can move deliberately forward to our next level with a clear vision, always keeping our options open on how it's going to unfold. The important thing is to keep moving in the direction of the vision, and you do that by keeping the vision in mind, documenting it as you go, and by not getting in the way when the pieces of the puzzle start to fall into place, as they will, one way or another. Now, in upcoming episodes, I'm going to talk a fair amount about this next level business. It's really a universal topic, and there's a lot to talk about. So if you have any thoughts or questions, as always, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening, and remember to stay positive, stay focused on that destination, and keep all your options open on how you're going to get there. And I'll see you on episode 11. And that's it for this episode of Guitar Business Radio. Thanks for being with us. You can stay tuned and stay in touch at guitarbusinessradio.com.